So this is the point we stopped last time. We discussed about organization analysis and task analysis. Right, so we discussed in detail all these two analysis. Then we have to discuss about person analysis. Person analysis is simply like determining the HR needs of the individual employee. Simply determining the human resource development needs of individual employee. And in other words, which employees lacks different types of knowledge, skills, and abilities. Who needs required knowledge, skill, and other abilities or competencies need to be determined by this, need to be determined at this analysis. So person analysis simply who requires is the analysis of or identifying who requires training or which training they require. Determining that is simply known as person analysis. The focus of this analysis is how well is to identify how well each employee is performing key job tasks. The main focus is of this analysis. Under this analysis, what the job analyst or the person analyst, the one who do the analysis, need to know is how well employee performing his or her tasks. If he is performing well, obviously no need to take him for the training. If he is not performing well, we need to look at why he is not performing well. Right? In that sense, simply we need to find out the reasons why he is not performing well. Simply reasons why. At the identification of reasons why, obviously you will be able to understand what are the areas that knowledge, skill, or other competency levels that he is lacking. This analysis is best someone who can observe the employee's performance on a regular basis, right? So if the job analysts want to or person analysts want to observe the employee's performance on a regular basis, if that can be done, that's the best thing, because the performance gaps can be regularly identified, frequently identified. Then obviously we can understand what are the areas that he need to improve. But due to some reasons, time limitations and cost considerations, this is not done regularly. But if you can do this analysis on a regular basis, you can have the real information, right? And also the involvement of an employee and that employee's immediate supervisor. Normally, who involved with this analysis? Who involved with this analysis? This analysis is done by an employee and that employee's immediate supervisor. Sometimes employee himself do this analysis. Simply he requests the HR department to HRD department that I am lacking these knowledge, skills, and other abilities or attitude levels. Simply he can request the HRD department to have these kind of particular training program or development program in those in different areas. Why he is requesting a HRD program on these or different areas? Because he is lacking those things. Simply employee can request training and development programs or HRD programs catering his or her knowledge skill gaps, or in order to fulfill the gaps in knowledge or skill or other characteristics, obviously HR department can be requested by a particular employee. Or in other words, a supervisor of a particular department or a particular set of employees can request to do a particular person analysis and then identify the person requirements or the requirements to train or develop. Depending on the nature of an individual's work, that employees, peers, customers, subordinates may also be in a position to provide information that, which means that not only the employee or the employee's immediate supervisor, but also that employee, peers, customers, subordinates can involve in this person analysis process. Right? Not only the employee, individual employee, but also his supervisor, his peers, his customers, or the subordinates can perform this person analysis and understand what are the areas that this particular employee need to improve or need to develop. To get a complete picture of an employee's performance, an increasingly common performance evaluation approach called 360-degree performance appraisal uses as many of these sources as possible, right? So this basically 360-degree feedback or 360-degree performance appraisal, which means that you may have heard about it, and or sometimes I may have done it earlier. This is the employee supervisor is there, employees co-workers are there, some the what do you call this, the employees who are in the same level, maybe this is the employee, and his subordinates are there, who maybe sometimes there are customers who are dealing with the employee. There may be sometimes suppliers who are dealing with the employee. There may be government agencies who are dealing with the employee, and there may be some other related parties who are dealing with the employees. This is 360-degree. They are evaluating the performance of this particular employee and identify the areas that he need to develop, right? For example, if this employee is not dealing with the his supervisor well, he understand that his interpersonal skills with supervisors, maintaining interpersonal skills with his supervisor is very low. His attitude is very low. His attitude is not a good one, right? In that, when maintaining relationship with supervisors, right? Obviously, he can record this and submit this to the HRD department and request the HR department to arrange a particular training and attitude development program. So likewise, all the related parties who are working with this particular employee can identify the areas that the particular employees need to be developed. That is simply known as uh, person analysis, right? Then data sources available for person analysis. From which data person analysis can be done? Normally, in an organization, there are various information sources available, right? So, what are those? One is performance appraisal results, right? As you normally know, once a month or on a regular basis, if it is computerized automated system, on a hourly basis, we can have a performance evaluation data sheet of the particular employee. Or maybe if it is a manual performance appraisal system available in the organization, obviously we can have it annually or semi-annually. Quarterly we can have, right? So by referring performance appraisal results, we can understand where the employee having gaps when it comes to the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Right? For example, productivity levels, absenteeism or tardiness levels, accident, short-term sickness, grievances, waste, late deliveries, product quality, downtime repairs, equipment utilization, customer complaints are all these sources that denote some areas of lacking. For example, if the productivity is very low of the employee, in that sense, his speed and the resource wastage level is very high. In that case, he must be trained to increase to increase his production. Then absenteeism or tardiness, obviously when the particular employee is absent so much, then in that case his attitude train he can be sent to an attitude training, and he can be sent to a personal development training program. Right? Accidents obviously help to when the particular employee has met various sources of accidents in a given time period, he can be sent to a training or development program to handle the things, the way how the operations are handled, the way how the job is handled, right? Simply from these sources, we can identify the areas where the employee can be developed or can be trained or developed, right? So these are the sources by which we can simply understand the areas, also sources by which we can understand the areas of development or training. Right. So then once the analysis is done, we discussed about three basic areas of analysis. One is organization analysis. Second one is task analysis. Third one is person analysis. Now, once the analysis or assessment, need assessment is done, then we have so many needs for further training and or development opportunities available. Then obviously once the training needs are identified, we have a list of training needs. Then we cannot target all the training needs identified. So depending on the organizational priorities, depending on the business priorities, aligning with the business priorities, we can select the best or the urgent training needs to be prioritized, which are aligned to the business strategy or the business priorities, right? Otherwise, not all the identified training needs cannot be accommodated for training and development, and it is not practical. Right? Sometimes the organization analysis, person analysis, and task analysis may have identified so many different training needs. Might be sometimes more than 200 training needs uh, required. I already identified by these two analysis. But we can't target all these 200, for example, 200 training needs to train or to focus on more training or development, right? So what we need to do is we need to prioritize the identified training needs. Obviously, once the needs assessment is done, we have a list of needs identified. Then we need to go through all these lists of uh, training needs, and then the next step of the needs assessment is to prioritize uh, which needs to be taken first, right? So prioritization need to be done, and that is here in this slide, prioritizing the HRD needs, so training and development needs. Need analysis reveals multiple needs. Obviously, as I just talked to you, need assessment identify multiple or various needs, training OHRD needs. The management and the training and development staff will have to prioritize those needs. What they need to do, the staff need to prioritize those needs depending on the business or strategic priorities of the organization. Then decisions must be made about what resources will be used in the training and development, facilities, equipment, materials, skilled personnel, travel, and consultant fees. By considering all these factors, we can determine whether which identified needs are need to be prioritized or not. Simply based on that, based on these factors, we can simply prioritize the training needs and then prioritize training depending on the prioritized training needs. Then we can start the next step, right? So then with this slide, that's all about the needs assessment. Need assessment is done. Then immediately we have to move to the other, the next immediate HRD function. Oh, yes, HRD function. Now need assessment done, prioritization done. The immediate next one is, uh, what is the next one? According to the diagram. Next one is training design, OHRD design. Need assessment need to be done. Then prioritization. After that, after that, we can design a training or HRD program based on the prioritized training or HRD needs. Okay, now this is the time to discuss the fourth handout, that is designing training and development programs or HRD programs. Give me one more minute. Right, sorry for the some time taken to upload this, take this handout. Right. So anyway, we are going to discuss the next immediate handout. That is the fourth one, designing effective HRD programs. So far, we have discussed the first one. We discussed about an introduction to the subject. Then we discussed about learning and HRD, basically learning theories, strategies, principles, and so on. Learning related things we discussed. And third one, we discussed the need assessment. Right? Basically, need assessment was discussed, how to do person, organization, and task analysis or assessments are done. We discussed. Then, based on that knowledge, basically the need assessment consists of two steps. They are doing need assessment and identifying the training needs or HRD needs, and then based on the identified HRD needs, we can prioritize the HR needs. Then based on the prioritized HR needs, we can design a program. Now, today we are going to discuss how we can design a program based on the prioritized, identified, then prioritized training, development or HRD needs. Right? So, based on the identified and prioritized HRD needs, how we can develop an HRD program or design HRD program. Our task is to design an HRD program. Right. So this is the steps. This is the model that we are following. Oh, simply HRD process is this one: assessment, designing, implementation, and evaluation. Those are the 4 steps, which is called as 4-step HRD process. And this one was discussed in the last week. And today we are going to discuss this one. Our task is to design an HRD program based on the prioritized HRD needs, right? So in the assessment we discussed about person, organization, and task analysis, and then identified needs based on these analysis need to be prioritized. Then prioritized needs are based on the
Thank you for
prioritized
what
needs.
organized.
HRD programs are designed, right? So in the designing stage, basically we have these steps. Basically, we need to define the training and development or HRD objectives, then develop a lesson plan, select the trainers, and select the methods and training techniques or HRD techniques, then schedule the program. Those are the basic sub steps of designing, right? So these are the sub steps to be followed under the designing, right? So we'll discuss one by one. And these are the learning outcomes. Introduction, which just I gave you just without this slide, I gave you an introduction how this topic came, and the background for this topic was clearly explained just a few seconds ago. Right. Now, after completing this stage, organizations will have the data where the training, and after the designing is done, then simply the organization or the HRD division know where the training or HRD program is needed, which department are needed, which department is needed, what kind of HRD program needed, who needs, and the conditions under which this type of HRD program needed. With this information, design process is started. Simply, these are the organization analysis, task analysis, person analysis. Simply, based on these analysis, we are designing the training program based on the prioritized HRD needs. Right? Key activities involved, as we discussed in this program, this process or this diagram, the same thing listed out here: setting objectives, selecting the trainer or vendor, developing a lesson plan, selecting program methods and techniques, preparing the materials, and scheduling the program. Those are the sub steps, and those things will be discussed one by one. Defining objectives, the first one, this one. Defining objectives. After the needs assessment, HRD professional is required to translate the needs into a set of objectives. As you know, once the needs are assessed or needs are identified, HRD professionals required to translate those needs into objectives. Why? Because in the training and development or HRD program, we are basically going to achieve those objectives. Then measurable, achievable, and realistic jobs need to be developed, from which we can have a framework uh, for conducting HRD program. Then simply we can evaluate the HRD program, uh, whether in that basically we can understand whether we have achieved the training objectives or HRD objectives already developed. So for that basically we need to initially develop HRD objectives based on the identified HRD needs. Right. So after the needs assessment, HRD professional is required. That is done. What objective means? Objective is something like a description of a performance you want learners to be able to exhibit before you consider them completed. This is the definition. Description of performance. Objective means description of a performance outcome. You want, we want you to be able to exhibit it. We want, for example, after this program, this is a HRD program. This course, as part of a degree program, this course is taught to you. This is purely a HRD program, right? And at the end of the program, we want you to behave. We want you to demonstrate certain outcomes, and that is the training and development objective, and that is the HRD objective, right? So here simply means that objective is a description of future performance that you, the learners, want to demonstrate, right? Before you take up the program, before you participate the program. Objective is that simply in the near future, after the training program, what you need to demonstrate. So that's the objective. What level of knowledge that you will have, what level of skill that you at the end of this program you will have, right? So simply it is a description of performance that the learners want to demonstrate by participating the HRD program. Robert Mager states that useful objectives should describe, basically objectives should describe these three areas. What are they? Performance, conditions, and criteria. Right? So these three areas need to be reflected by an objective, HRD objective. The performance is the uh, demonstration or the outcome. For example, number of units produced in a given time period is the performance, right? So performance need to be reflected. Performance outcome need to be reflected in an objective. Then conditions under which that performance need to be done, and the criteria how well they must do it, used in judging its success. Simply how well those areas need to be touched when developing an objective or HRD objective, right? So performance examples are given. An objective always says what a learner is expected to be able to do. What a learner is expected to be able to do, or products to be considered competent, or producers to be considered competent. Simply example is given. Write a product profile for a proposed new product, right? Write a product profile for a proposed new product. Then in a training program uh, of let's say writing a product profile, right? So the training program can simply um, design based on this. Write a product profile for a proposed new product. That is the performance uh, criteria, or the performance objective. In the objective, basically, your performance is reflected. Then condition, an objective describes the important conditions if under which the performance is to occur. Given all available engineering data regarding a proposed product, trainee will write a product profile, right? So that is the condition. Given all available engineering data regarding a proposed product, So that has been already given, because that has been given in the training, and that in such a case, the trainee or the learner must be able to write the product profile. That's the expectation. Then criteria, wherever possible, an objective identifies the criteria of acceptable performance by describing how well the learner must perform in order to be considered acceptable, right? So criteria example is given like this: the product profile must describe all the commercial characteristics of the product that are appropriate for its introduction to the market, including descriptions of at least 3 major product uses, right? So here this is, if I can give you another, give me 1 more minute and I will explain another slide. I will include another slide for this. For that, uh, give me a few seconds, or give me a few minutes. I will take another another slide from another slideshow. Right. So suppose this is uh, something like this, right? This is a sales training, right? Sales training. Training objective is given like this, right? So sales employees are given a training. Then the sales employees are normally trained about a particular how to sell a particular product. So obviously, as you know, customers comes to the sales point. Obviously, they inquire about the product. They find information about the product. So that's they basically given at the training. And so simply, uh, when it comes to the performance, uh, you must be able to write a product profile. Product profile in the sense that product information for a given product, right? Suppose uh, this is the target given, right? I just gave you for an example, but the condition is here is sales training. In a sales personnel training, uh, performance outcome, or the when you design an objective, obviously performance need to be reflected in that objective. That need to be that kind of a performance outcome need to be reflected in the objective. For example, in a sales personnel training, write a product profile for a new product. Proposed new product may be A product, B product, C product, D product, or E product, something like that, right? For a given product, you must be able to uh, write a product portfolio, uh, product information, profile information. That must be included. So obviously, in setting an objective, but basically you must include the performance target. Then condition, under which condition you must do this. Simply given all available engineering data, in case of given all the engineering data uh, regarding a particular product, trainee will write a product profile, right? So that is the condition. And criteria, simply the product profile must describe of all the commercial characteristics of the product that are appropriate for its introduction to the market, including descriptions of at least three major product uses. Right? So these green highlighted area simply the criteria by which criteria that must be included in an objective, right? Simply these are the criteria. Product must profile must describe all the commercial. This is the criteria must describe all the commercial characteristics of the product, including descriptions of at least three major product uses. So this is the criteria simply by which we can measure the performance. Simply, we can evaluate the performance. We can evaluate whether employee can learn or not by these type of criteria. Say there is a performance, condition, and criteria. All these three things need to be satisfied or included in developing an objective, in developing a training objective. Once a training objective is developed, because we need to include these three criteria. Why? Because mainly to assess whether learner has learned these areas. Because if we develop an objective, design an objective in a vague manner, we can't measure whether employee, whether the trainee or the learner has learned something, right? So when you go to this one, for example, here, in this lesson, we have given training objectives. This is purely something like training objective because learning outcomes at the end of this lesson, these are the areas you must demonstrate. You must write. You must be able to write what? Training objectives for specific program, right? Once this particular lesson is finished, you must be able to write a training objective for a given program. Then how we can measure whether you learn this at the examination? At the examination, because at the examination, we evaluate you. At the examiner, we hold an exam to evaluate you to understand whether you have learned the content of the subject, right? So this set of learning outcomes have been given, which are something like learning objectives or training objectives. Then objectives develop, then basically we can measure, we can identify whether objectives have been achieved or not just after the training, just after the learning event, right? So simply objectives are set to make the entire learning process become easy so that we can evaluate whether learners have learned something or not, right? Okay, now guidelines for setting objectives. Why we are teaching all these things? Because now I taught you the conditions or the criteria or the performance qualities of a good objective, useful objective, and that was taught to you. Why? Because you must be able to develop. We are giving in this the practical knowledge. In this type of a lecture, I'm trying my best to give you the practical knowledge. Why? Because you must be able to design training and HRD program in your organizational setup once you get jobs, because HRD program, HRD subject is taught to you to be the HRD managers in the near future, in the future. Once you got an assignment undertaken, once you have undertaken, you will undertake this kind of a HRD program in the near future. In that case, you need to design HRD program. In that case, obviously, you must apply the things that you learned in this class, right? So simply, you must be able to develop a training objective, HRD objective. Then how you develop that? Right? Please remember, as I noted you, I will give you some case studies at the examination. Right? You will be given some small cases. Suppose you are the HRD man, like this. Suppose you are the HRD manager of D company, and uh, let's say uh, um, need assessment need to be done by you. An assessment, you were supposed to you undertook a need assessment, and need assessment identified sales force is not performing well, right? So develop a HRD program for this sales force. How you can develop? That's the question, right? So you need to develop HRD program for the sales force of this ABC company, because you are the HRD manager. Now, what you need to do, simply you need to follow HRD process. Right now, you already completed need assessment, and that is already given in the already given in the question. Now, from the designing onwards, you need to do how you design. Initially, you need to develop HRD programs. You need to develop HRD objectives first. HRD objectives need to be developed. So how you can develop without uh, these knowledge? Please remember, you must have these knowledges to apply them to such type of case studies, right? Uh, an objective always say, right? So these things we discussed. Guidelines for establishing objectives. Yes. Uh, uh, Still, we are discussing these guidelines for establishing objectives. Basically, to prepare useful objective continue to modify a draft until these questions are answered. What do I want trainees to be able to do? That is performance. What are the important conditions or constraints under which I want them to perform? Conditions. And how well must trainees perform for me to be satisfied? That is the criteria. Those things need to be simply incorporated in an objective. Write a separate statement for each important outcome or intent. Write as many as you need to communicate your intents. Right. So these are the criteria or guidelines uh, you can simply follow in establishing objectives. The next step is make versus buy decisions, or simply whether you can develop your own HRD program or simply you can buy a program from outside vendor. Need to be decided at this level, right? Whether you design a program, tailor-made program for your people that is already identified, or simply need at this moment, at this point you have already identified the training needs, right? So for the identified group of uh, uh, training needs or identified needs for the group of people that you recognize, uh, for them, you whether you own develop your own HRD program, or you can simply hire outside organization to deliver a training program, or ask other outside organization to design our program and deliver to the target audience. That need to be determined at this level. Simply that is known as make or buy decisions. Make is simply whether you uh, create, whether you design your own training program, HRD program. Buy, simply buy denotes whether you acquire, whether you buy from an outside vendor. Buy a training or development program from an outside vendor. So that decision need to be taken at this level. The steps refers to decide to design the program internally or purchase it from outside vendor, or use the combination of. Many services are available through outside vendors or consultants, including when you purchase the HRD program from an outside vendor. Simply, these are the facilities that you can obtain. Assisting with conducting need analysis. They assist for conducting need assessment. Their people comes to the organization and help for the need assessment conducting, and guiding internal staff to design or implement the training program or HRD program, designing the program specifically for the organization, providing supplementary training materials like exercises, workbooks, computer, software, videos, presenting a previously designed program, and conducting a train the trainer program to build the instructional skills of the internal content experts. Simply, internal people can also be trained, especially the trainers can be trained by those outside vendors. And then finally, those are the available services by them when you buy a program from an outside vendor. Then factors to consider before purchasing an HRD program, right? So basically, whether you decide whether you purchase or whether you design your own training and development HRD program is determined by these factors. Expertise. For example, if you don't have the expertise on that area, obviously you have to purchase a HRD program. Timelines. When it is timelier to hire an outside agency to facilitate the process, right? So in the sense that to conduct the HRD program, it is taking much time to conduct the HRD program. Obviously, you don't want to buy it because you can, rather than taking much time, you can develop your own program, right? So if you want to wait, if you have to wait a longer time to purchase the program, obviously the burden or the problem may exist for a longer time before the problem or the employee gaps become a huge gap. Simply you can design your own HRD program, right? Rather than waiting. So in this case, if it is a timely factor to purchase the HRD program, the better thing is to develop your own HRD program. A number of trainees, generally larger the number of trainees, the greater the likelihood of the organization would be willing to design the program itself, right? If you have the larger number of HR participants for the HRD program, obviously you have to pay much more money because normally outside vendors, outside the HRD development programs, organizations are charging based on the per head basis, in the sense that if you have 1,000 employees to train, suppose nearly 200,000 is the charge for a particular employee. Only 200,000 is charged for only or only an employee to train. In that case, suppose 1,000 multiplied by 200,000, a huge cost need to be spent by the company. In that case, the best thing the company can do is to develop your own HRD program rather than purchasing HRD program from an outside vendor. That depends on the cost and the number of participants to train or to develop. Then subject matter. If the subject matter is proprietarily to the HRD department, it would conduct the program in-house using employees as trainers, right? So if the suppose HRD staff is not competent for doing the requested program by the different divisions in the organization. Obviously, HRD department need to purchase the relevant HRD intervention from an outside organization. But in case if it is HR related, HRM related, the subject area comes under the competency of the HR department. Obviously, HR department people can conduct the program, HRD program. Let's say, for example, a production department having 20 engineers. Then engineers uh, uh, of this department shows that they are lacking the basic engineering skills. Now, in this case, can the HR department train engineering skills to the engineering people? No, we can't, because we don't know. We are not expert on that area. So in that case, obviously, HR department need to purchase a relevant engineering skill related HRD program from an outside vendor, right? So that's the idea of this subject matter. If the subject matter comes under the purview of HRD department, HRD people train the other people, or simply in-house HRD people deliver the HRD program or design the HRD program. But if it is not HR related, obviously outside organization need to be hired for training that subject area, or to aware or develop that subject area in those required people. Then cost, the cost. The HRD department always considers the cost, but only in concern with other factors. HRD department always considers the cost, but only in concern with other factors. right? So HRD, normally HRD department is given an annual budget for training the employees by the budget preparation of the entire company. Top management decisions are made at these budget preparation meetings, annual budget preparation meeting. Top management normally allocate a training budget for the HRD department. So they need to spend that budget, and using that allocations, simply HRD programs need to be designed, right? Otherwise, in case if there are no expertise, obviously allocations can be spent for outside organizations or outside vendor organization, HRD vendoring organizations, uh, from which simply we can train or develop our people. So normally allocations are given to the HRD department, and depending on the budget or the expenses that need to be spent for the HRD program, HRD department decide whether make or buy decisions, which decision is to make, whether buy or make the HRD program. That is depending on the cost of the program, right? If let's say if the HRD program exceeds if the HRD program cost of the relevant proposed HRD program exceeds the allocated money for the entire year, obviously they need to develop the program by in-house rather than acquiring rather than having rather than purchasing the HRD program. So when you go to purchase the HRD program, you may have to pay a big amount. If that is not allocated, obviously you need to develop your own HRD program that lies between that lies in the range of the allocated budget. Right, size of the HRD, it is important for assessing the capacity to design, conduct, implement skill training as opposed to using an outside agency. Right, so obviously size of the HRD, it is important to assess the capacity to design, conduct, implement skill training as opposed to using an outside agency. You may assess your capacity. You may assess in the sense that the HRD department need to assess whether they are capable enough to conduct this program. If they are not capable enough, obviously that need to be hired or purchased from an outside organization. The next factor, other factors, some other extraneous conditions, other factors that would make it preferable that an outside agency be used to conduct the skill training or the training, right? So there may be other extraneous factors, other certain factors that ultimately determine. We can't directly point out which factor or that factor or this factor. Maybe sometimes uh, some other factors may sometimes uh, affect to determine whether the training program need to be conducted inside or outside. Suppose, for example, COVID-19. Due to COVID-19, sometimes suppose you have virus infections, due to virus infection possibility, you can determine to send your all the employees to an outside organization rather than developing your people within in-house. Simply you can ask the employees by giving a budget to the employee. You can have this skill, or you can develop your this skill or that skill or knowledge by having an outside training program by your own wish, right? Rather than uh, designing a program in-house to the employees, right? So there are maybe some other different factors depending on which HRD people determine whether a program is built in-house or purchased from an outside. Then we have a criteria for choosing vendors: cost, credentials, background, experience, philosophy. Vendors are the HRD programs. HRD, sorry, HRD, yes, HRD programs. So HRD programs applying organizations, right? So you can simply now, after doing this lesson, you can simply form consultancy, HRD consultancy firm by simply gathering 4 to 5 students. Simply they can form a small company, HRD program, offering HRD programs to the organizations. Simply you can do OBTs, you can do different training sessions, different HRD, HR related soft skill development programs. You can do. I am doing because I am a consultant. Part-time consultant I'm doing because I know the things. I'm consulting. I'm doing research consultancy. I'm doing OBTs, outward bound training, and I'm doing kind of motivational speak or motivational inspirational training, attitude development training, personality development training, knowledge training. Right. For example, I'm offering my resource personnel um, to the Southern Province Business Studies teachers. That is purely a subject matter and latest things on the business studies area for the A-level business studies taught teachers. Normally, I'm conducting sessions because the Southern Province Education Department hire me as a resource person. I'm now as a trainer, right? So we can form as an individual. I'm offering my service not only to the university. I'm an employee here in the university, but apart from that, on a part-time basis, I'm doing consultancies. I'm HRD personnel. I'm developing people, right? Not only to Sri Lanka, but also to outside organizations in other countries as well. Uh, So that's expected from you. You need to, as I'm telling always, you need to develop your own area. You need to be skillful or the competent. That's why I'm telling you day by day, at least for a single day, you need to acquire something new. Then day by day, 4 years is purely 365 multiplied by 4 times. Huge days you need to spend in the university life, right? So if you target to acquire something new, at least a very single thing which is totally new for a day, you imagine 365 days multiplied by 4 times, how many things that you have acquired, right? After 4 years. So then this 4 year period is so much more than enough to develop you, right? So in my PhD time, I have developed developed in so many areas. Then I'm now delivering. I'm offering my service as a resource person. That can be done to you as well, done by you as well. So therefore, you can form your own company on an individual basis or on a collective basis. But important thing is to acquire first. You need to develop uh, uh, in a different area, or maybe you must be skillful. You must be a resource to deliver, right? To develop HR, obviously you must be a resource personnel. And these things we are teaching is so more than enough to be a resource person, right? So simply you can teach the Hampasal teachers these things, how you can teach. You can collect some tuition masters and you can teach them. You can, organize an HRD program for them, right? So various things can be done. Vendoring organizations, HRD, outside vendors. You can be outside vendor for different organizations. For the government factory personnel, Yuki machine operators, simply you can design a program on an individual basis or maybe collective basis. A team of students can organize, can form a business, small business. The business name is HRD interventions. Simply you can train people, can develop people, right? So uh, then criteria, the organizations use different criteria to select a vendor. The first one is the cost. What uh, uh, amount they charge normally, right? So I'm charging nearly a big amount. For a government organizations, I have a charge, and for private sector organizations, I have a charge. And when it comes to research, I charge a certain amount, and that's my resource fee. So likewise, you can determine your own fee. That is the cost, right? Then credentials. Most important thing is the qualifications because people call you as a resource person if you have sound credentials, sound profile. You need, that's why I'm telling you, you need to develop your own sound brand or profile. Day by day, your profile need to be upgraded by adding new skills, knowledge, attitudes, values, competencies, abilities, and so much more, right? So credentials, qualifications are very much important to get you hired as a resource person, as a consultant, right? So you need to have more qualifications, more certificates, more practical exposures, more talents, right? Need to be acquired. And those need to be branded. So your personal branding is very much important. And that can be easily done with nowadays by social media, right? So if you have noted my social media, I'm really branding my person, my name. I'm trying to brand myself. So then I have good results from that. I have positive outcomes for my own branding. So likewise, I instruct you to brand yourself. Then ultimately, at the end of the day, you will get more businesses, and you will get notified, and you will be a good resource person. So credentials is very much important. Right? Companies, when selecting a particular vendor for HRD programs, companies consider qualifications of the uh, HRD supplying HRD program supplying resource personnel or supplying organization. Qualifications are very much important. Then background, number of years in the business, number of experience. Now I am spending my 20th year, sorry, 18th year. A big number, right? So how many years they are, whether they are exist in the business, exist in the HRD division, exist in the HRD deliveries, right? So experience is very much important. And the philosophy is the value. Philosophy is the value. What type of value? Whether they are good people, kind people, and respectful people, and they have always positive attitudes with the dealing with others. What are the qualities they have? What are the personalities they have? Right? The philosophy. Comparison of the vendor's philosophy to that of the organization. So basically, philosophy or the values of the vendor organizations to the target organization that we are talking about. Then the criteria for choosing vendors and delivery method, the way how we can deliver. whether online, whether offline, whether on the job, whether off the job, right? Or whether hybrid mode, whether outward bound, right? So various techniques are there, uh, delivery method, and what techniques are used, and the content topics included in the program, the actual product, including appearance samples or whether a pilot program is available, and the results, ultimately what are the outcomes expected, or what are the expected outcomes they are going to generate for the for our organization, and the support, especially in terms of implementation and follow-up. What type of follow-up demonstrated, and what additional support services given after training the employees, whether they are following up or whether they are generating results, supporting to generate results, because the company need to invest more money for the HRD program when hiring, or when we get the service from outside vendor, what support services are given, like whether they evaluate the employees, and whether they provide outcomes just after the training to denote the training program is successful or not, because we have already paid the money to the vendor, and vendor have a responsibility to demonstrate the positive outcomes after the training, right? Otherwise, the companies don't waste money for the outside vendors. If the vendor provide additional service to denote that the program was really successful by producing so many evidence just after the training, after giving the training, before the training and after the training, simply the vendor company can simply demonstrate the performance differences of the target participants. So then only company can realize after the training program they have developed, or they have the targeted people have already been developed by the vendor company. So those type of additional services need to be provided. And then selecting the trainer. By considering all these factors, we can select the trainer. And once the organizations have made decision to design its own HRD program, or has purchased a program, a trainer must be selected. Training competency is very much important when selecting a particular trainer. And effective trainers must be able to communicate their knowledge clearly, use various instructional techniques, have good interpersonal skills, have the ability to motivate others to learn. Very good learners, very good trainers have these features, right? So very good teachers demonstrate these factors, and they really communicate well, and they use various techniques, because as you know, we learned in the previous lesson, people are different in when it comes to the learning. They have different learning patterns, their learning styles are different. So in order to actively learn everyone, those diverse people, we need to use diverse strategies, learning strategies, teaching strategies. So best resource person, or the best teacher, best trainer can follow various options. They can communicate well, and they have good interpersonal skills, and they have the ability to motivate to learn, right? So that's why they have become a very good trainers, because they have outstanding training capacities. And we need to evaluate all these in selecting a very good trainer. Then selecting the trainer, subject matter expertise. He may be a subject matter expertise. And then by considering all these, we can select a trainer. Then after that, we can develop a lesson plan. Developing a lesson plan is the third step in the here, as you can see. This is the third. We discussed about setting objectives, selecting the trainer or vendor, then developing a lesson plan. You can simply use the same thing, or simply just memorize, just refresh our memory on this particular slide. We are in this third one. Once selecting the trainer or vendor, we can develop a lesson plan. So we are now going to discuss about the